it was never for me, how can I profit off of this kid? It was, what kind of platform can we offer for these kids?
Welcome to My God, a Podcast Stories, Iconic Brands. I'm Jim Wood. In this episode, John Powell and I are joined by Chase Kelly. You probably know Chase as one of the guys behind 7-6 Apparel. But do you know how 7-6 got started? We discuss that as well as their latest venture, Iconic Brands. Be sure to follow us at My God, a Podcast on social media. And also, we'd love it if you'd follow 7-6 Apparel as well as Iconic Brands. Now, let's join the conversation. In progress. I guess the first thing I wanted to ask, because I know like a lot of this, like from when we've talked before, just about 7-6 starting, then obviously with Iconic, like a lot of it came from being a sports fan, being a Georgia fan. So like one thing I couldn't remember for sure was being a Georgia fan something that like you were born into, or was it something you picked up?
No, it was definitely born into it. So my dad lived in Athens for several years while he and my mom were dating, and so the genesis of their relationship was in Athens during the early '80s, like the glory days. And so I grew up with stories of my mom going to Athens for the weekend, and they're huddled around a radio with everybody else listening to Look at the Sugar Falling Out of the Sky and, stuff like that. So that's how it originally got to me. And then I had all these VHS games on tape that my dad had recorded, or, that the university would put out, like 25 years of Georgia football and, stuff like that. And that's what I watched as a kid, and it just consumed me. And I was actually born on Super Bowl Sunday, so like I think that I was like destined to just be a football fan, just a nut job, and so that's just how it started for me. Was my dad growing up in Rome and then living in Athens for so many years, and he ran around with Herschel. They were big buddies. My dad was the manager at Zales in the mall back in the day, and so like everybody came to him to get their chain fixed or to get, the new necklace or ring or whatever. And he may or may not have weaseled his way into some tickets from that. I don't know. But anyway, he got eaten up with it and just passed it on to me. And like I said, I grew up watching VHS tapes of, games before I was even born. And that's like what I watched as a kid instead of like cartoons and stuff. So it's just always been a part of who I am with watching football. And my grandfather had season tickets forever. And, he would, if he didn't have to give them to a customer or something like that, he would give them to us. So before I had my own money, it was just the biggest thrill if he had tickets to a game, whether it was Vanderbilt or Kentucky or Tennessee or the biggest game on the schedule. If you got to go to a game, like it was, it consumed you. And that's before every single game was on TV. And so I'm sure, all of you, both of you know how that was. If the game was on TV, it made the week even that much better. So that's how it started for me. It was through my dad, living in Athens and making me watch old VHS games like I'm watching right now. just a dork, just a complete football nerd. And so that's how it started for me.
Well, you're in good company, and I know I've tweeted the picture of all of my my VHS tapes. I don't have as many like just like straight up like ESPN or whatever recordings, but I've got not all of. I have many of, and I'm now kicking myself that I didn't buy every single one of those, like the Georgia, like if you called like 1-800-99-DOGS or whatever.
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
Like we used to pick those up at Kroger, I think. So I've still got those. I've converted them to digital. So okay. At any rate, so that gets you into sports fandom. But then, as far as apparel, there was like some sporting goods or apparel background with your family as well, right?
Right, yeah. So my parents owned a sporting goods store when I was growing up, which did me no favors as far as like being obsessed with football and uniforms and just collectibles and memorabilia, autographs, like all that stuff. It all stems from that. And so they did a lot of like team uniforms, like high school uniforms, and complete rec parks. Like they would go and bid for the rec leagues baseball uniforms from ages 5 and 6 to 12 or 13 or whatever it was. And so it was more sporting goods than like apparel. Well, certainly they did like corporate
Okay.
apparel and that sort of thing, but the older I got, the more I would say like, oh, this, you should make this a t-shirt. And it was like, well, where are we going to sell that? Like there wasn't Amazon or, anything like that. And I'm like, I don't know, just make me one. And he's like, no, we have to do 12 minimums. And so that drove me crazy, is that there was always a minimum. And I got like just the process of it. I understood that there had to be a minimum. So when we started this, it was very important for us to do something where there weren't minimums, because we're in a town where there's so many local artists, musicians, breweries developing and stuff like that. They don't really have the means or the need to order 400 shirts or 500 shirts or whatever and sit on them until they sell them. So it was important for us to do and use technology that we use, which is digital printing, so that we can do one-offs and do things one at a time. And that's what allows us to have such a big catalog on the 7.6, is we're not having to produce any of this stuff up front and sit on it. We can literally throw stuff at the wall and see what sticks. And if the shirt never sells, we're not out anything except whatever time it took us to design it, which, I mean, that's just part of our day anyway. So the way that 7.6 evolved from that was heavily influenced from my parents having the sporting goods store, but it was very important for us, like I said, to make sure that we could handle the low orders, the smaller orders, in addition to the big orders. But as far as the apparel thing,
that's basically the difference of like screen printing, right? Because like the screen printing, from what I know, you basically have to like make the silk screen or whatever.
Yeah, and if
it takes time to build all those out, right? So that's why people want to have a bigger order, because they want to make sure they're getting their money's worth out of making the screen.
Correct. Right? So like if you use a screen print, which we do offer screen printing services, like we do that. We just specialize in the direct to garment, the DTG, the digital printing of it. But like if you had a shirt that was 6 colors, you'd have 6 screens and you've got to print it 6 times, one for each color. Whereas with the digital printers, it may take just a tad longer, but it's going to lay down those colors all at the same time. So we don't have to charge screen fees or setup fees or anything like that, which is very helpful for us in what we do as far as retail goes. Because like I said, we're not having to print a shirt that might have 6, 7, 8 colors and then sit on them until we sell them and then print a bunch more. And, it helps the cash flow out, because you're not sending out a bunch of money up front on a specific item. You can just print them as they come in.
Right.
I didn't even know there was a difference.
Yeah, there's now it's got, the technology has gotten so good that it's hard to tell the difference. But you can tell a screen printed shirt as opposed to a digital shirt, because the screen print shirts are going to have like a little bit of a thicker, cakier, rougher ink feel on the shirt, like almost scratchy. And then obviously on our digital shirts, after a couple washes, it literally feels like it's in the material. It's not it's a little bit glossier than it is chalky and flat looking. So the technology, that's good that you can't really tell. But it's, for us in our operation, it makes more sense to be digital. And there's tons of people out there where it makes more sense for them to be screen printing. And that's fine. Neither one are better than the other. It's just, for us, it made more sense to be digital, with wanting to offer one-offs and host stores and be able to do that kind of stuff, instead of having to produce everything in bulk.
Right.
This is going to trigger t-shirt Twitter. Someone out there on t-shirt Twitter is going to get triggered with the digital versus screen.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm sure.
Where's Hunter? I'm sure he has an opinion.
Yeah.
So I guess going from so I don't know. So I guess you've got the sports background, you've got the apparel background from your parents. I guess what was like the kind of jumping off point that gave you the idea even for 7.6? Like what was that turn, or was there a singular moment, or did that kind of evolve over time?
No, there was definitely a singular moment. I had kept my hand in this kind of stuff, even helping my parents and working at the sports store at the mall, like the fan store at the mall. I would get with the owner and come up with shirts just like I do with the 7-6, and we would sell them in the store around Christmas time and stuff like that, away from my parents' store because that wasn't really in their scope of business. So during Christmas, I would work at the local sports store in the mall, and I'd be like, "Hey, I can get my dad and his people to print up these shirts. Do you think we could move them?" And so we'd be like, "Yeah, let's order 36." So we'd order 36, and then we'd order 48. And this was during like the Stafford Merino blackout era. So like every
Mm.
shirt was black, and like you couldn't keep them in stock because that was the only black Georgia shirts there was. So like everything we
Right.
did was black. Like I mean, every shirt we did was black. And so I've just always had like an eye for what would be a good T-shirt. And so then eBay got popular, and so I would have my dad and his people print them up, and then I would sell them on eBay myself. And
Mm.
I mean, even going to Jacksonville, my dad and I would take a trash bag of Gator Hater T-shirts and just like walk around in the parking lot and sell them for $10 a piece, and like it would pay for our trip to
Right.
Jacksonville. So it's always just been a part of me. But I guess the moment for the 7-6 was 2017. The Predators were going on a run to the Stanley Cup Finals here in Nashville, and it was just like Preds mania everywhere, Preds fever. They had all these watch parties down on Broadway. They're blocking off the streets. Everybody's going to these watch parties, and I just kept seeing these awful, awful Predator shirts. Like they were so bad. And I text a couple of my buddies, the guys that ended up going into 7-6 with me, and I was like, "Hey, do you think that we could make a better one?" And I kind of sketched one out on a cocktail napkin, and we gave it to Dustin, who's our designer now, and asked him to just like make it a graphic and put it on a shirt. And so he did. We put it on Etsy. They sold. We did some more on Etsy. They sold. They sold. They sold. They sold. Well, that led us into the 2017 football season, and it was keep chopping. So we
Yeah.
did some keep chopping shirts, sold them on Etsy. Then we did Jacksonville, Georgia, and it was just like, wait a
Mm.
minute, anything Kirby Smart says, we can sell it as a T-shirt. So we just rode the hot hand and we did it, and they won the SEC, and it was the revenge tour. They beat everybody that they had lost to the previous year. So we did a revenge tour shirt, and then we did a Rose Bowl shirt. And before we knew it, we just had all these orders on our hands, and we're literally going over to Dustin's father's house in a garage. And we had ordered our own printer at this time, and we're printing every night after we get off work till like midnight. And then your friends
Right.
start calling you, and they're like, "Hey, my company needs some shirts." And we're like, "Well, how many?" And they're like, 500. And we're like, 500? Like we're used to printing like 21. So then we were printing 500 shirts. Then just word of mouth started getting around that we were doing shirts. And our fourth partner that we brought in, he was big into, like, he has a marketing firm in Knoxville, and his big clients and his big deal was Native American community and the casinos. And so they did a
Okay.
different shirt every single month with the casinos. And so then we started doing those shirts, and it just got to be where it was like none of us were focusing on our own jobs. Like we could not wait to like get together at 5:30 in this garage and print and whatever. And so Dustin and his father had a graphic design company. That was huge because they had all the equipment, they had all the good software, Photoshop, Illustrator, all that stuff. They could design everything. I had the knowledge of suppliers, of marketing, the fan base to get it to. I knew how to move it. um, so it was kind of a perfect storm. Everything just worked out. And long story long, eventually it took Dustin away from his company with his dad, and it forced me to go full time with 7-6, which was ultimately going to be my goal. But I didn't think it would happen for 5 or 6 years at least. And it took me away from, I was in freight and transportation logistics. And I was, let's see here, I worked at a place in Nashville for about a year until I had to start doing 7-6 stuff. So within a year of moving up to Nashville, 7-6 was rocking and rolling, and we had to do it full time, or it wasn't gonna stay afloat. We had to jump in and do it full time.
So how long was that period, right? So from the time you made let's start like maybe like the first Predator shirt, right? So
Yeah.
that was also 17, right?
Yeah, that was in June of 17 when the Preds were going into the Stanley Cup. And then I would say
Okay.
by the football season of 2018, we were starting to get pretty stressed out with how much work we had with 7-6, and we
Mhm.
only had after hours to work on it because we all three had our own regular jobs. And so that's when
Right.
it was a lot of printing until midnight or 1 a.m. in literally a one-car garage with three people in there, trying to make this thing work. And so by the end of 18, by the end of the football season 18, we had gotten into our current building and, a little bit of warehouse space, a front office, that sort of thing. So within 14, 15 months, it was a
Yeah.
fun hobby that turned into our jobs.
That's awesome. That's
Yeah.
so cool. You're like, listen, Chief, work is getting in the way of my T-shirt making business.
Yeah. Yeah. Hey, can I cut out at 3? I don't want to be out till
I
midnight
gotta go make
tonight.
some shirts, guys.
Yeah, yeah, that's exactly how it was. It was any spare moment we had, whether it was a Sunday or something. It was like, hey, let's run over to the house and knock this stuff out, so we don't have to do it Monday night or whatever. I mean, it was literally a second job, and it just got to be one of those deals where it was like, am I going to continue like working, a 40, 50 hour a week job and then doing this for 25 or 30 hours on the weekend, or I'm going to make this my 40 or 50 hour a week job or more. You know what I mean? Like
Right.
it was just like, all right, it's time to like, if we're going to make this thing work, we got to put all of our attention to it. And every time we have come to that big crossroad, we've made the right decisions, whether it was buying our own printer, getting our own building, all of us going on full time. Every single time we've come to that crossroad, it's always worked out when you're just like, I don't know how we're going to find the money to bring you on full time. I don't know how we're going to find the money to get a second printer. Well, it has just worked out. The more bodies you have doing it, just the more efficient it is, the more business development, the more sales. It's just worked itself out. And so now, looking back on it, it's crazy because we have 3 printers that we run. We've got 3 people in there full time, and we're going to have to get a new building when our lease runs out this December. We're going to have to get a new spot. So it's hard to believe that it's gotten here so quickly, because it just feels like yesterday that I was drawing that little Predators design up on a cocktail napkin, and we were meeting like every 3 or 4 weeks. We would meet and grab dinner or go to somebody's house and just kind of just brainstorm and write stuff down. And
Mhm.
it's just wild to think that this is where we are, and we still have a long way to go.
Didn't you guys do the humble yourself
Yeah.
shirt?
Yeah, so that was in the garage.
That was the first. That was the first. I remember. I remember when he tweeted out a picture of that shirt like a long time. Like obviously it was a while back, but I remember him tweeting out a picture of that shirt and it had that logo on there. I was like, "What is this? 7-6? What is
Yeah,
this
so that
thing?"
was a garage.
And
That
it's
was a
just
garage shirt.
crazy. It literally blew up in a matter of a few years. Like literally blew up, and now you see it everywhere. It's like you go to the Braves game. It's like, oh, hey, I know those guys.
Yeah, and let me tell you, that's the biggest thrill is when I'm at a game. If I'm at a Braves game or I'm obviously at a Georgia game or something like that, and you see somebody in the shirt, like around here, y'all know that like it's a big deal to pick out what you're going to wear to a game. Like, what hat am I going to wear? Like, what golf shirt am I going to wear? What T-shirt am I going to? Whatever it is, it's a big deal. You think about it all week. Okay, the team's wearing red. That means I wear my red hat or whatever it is. And it's just like, it's so flattering and humbling when you see somebody wearing your stuff at a game, because it's like, of all the stuff that you have, you chose to wear something that came from my brain and like my
Yeah.
moronic, goofy brain. You chose to wear that to a game. And like, it thrills me to death. It's flattering. I remember really the first time that had happened, it was the 2018 Tennessee game. And I slide into our seats as usual. And I sit down and the guy next to me has got a 41-0 t-shirt on. And I was just like, okay, this is what it's about. Like, I am so pumped. I can't wait to make another shirt tonight. And he was sitting
Right.
right next to me. Like, I didn't know who the guy was. He doesn't typically, sit down there where we are. And so it was awesome to know that like you're making things that people want to wear, not only at their house or at the tailgate or whatever, but they're wearing them to the game. And that is like, that's the coolest part to me, is that we're making stuff good enough for people to wear to a game.
Well, I remember it was cool for me, just as someone who at the time was just like, I followed you on Twitter.
Yeah.
And I ran into a guy before we had ever even like actually talked. But like, I remember I saw someone at like Academy Sports, where I live in Concord, North Carolina, and he had on the
Yeah.
GATA hat, and I had actually I had just ordered the shirt that I'm wearing right now, like the RBU shirt, and it was in
Yeah.
the mail, on the way, and I was like, "Hey, are you wearing a 7-6 barrel hat?" And he was like, "Yeah, they've got the best stuff." I was like, "My order's in the mail," and it was like, I think I like tagged you. I was like, "Oh my
You
gosh, I
did.
just met a guy in
Yeah.
Concord," and then
And
like now we
I love
follow each
those
other
stories.
too. So like, yeah, he was
Yeah.
like, "That was me," and so so shout out Micah.
Yeah. That's what thrills me. And, it's hard to like have a quote unquote bad day when you're in there, because at the end of the day, you're making sports apparel for fans. But it does get
Mm-hmm.
stressful. It does get frustrating like anything else. But when you see the people, when you open Twitter and people are sending out the fact that they have one of our bags that they got, they don't even have the bag open. They're just sending the bag. Like, what a great mail day.
Right.
That's exciting. Like, I genuinely love it. It never gets boring. It never gets old. And that's the stuff that's just like, it kind of keeps you motivated and keeps you grounded too, because you want to keep making good stuff, because you can go to Fanatics, Amazon, the bookstore, whatever, and you can buy like the same exact looking stuff. But
Yeah.
we want to make stuff that you can't buy everywhere. And if it does start to look like something at the bookstore, then I'm not doing my job well, because I don't want it to look like that. I don't want it to be confusing, as the legal people will say. I don't want it to be confusing to people. I want it to be clear. Okay, that's not a shirt that I've ever seen. That's somebody else doing that. If I'm confusing, then I'm not doing my job good enough. So it's incredible to see people wearing our stuff at games, and the tweets and all that stuff. It keeps us going. And so for all of the people out there, when you get your stuff, please send it to us. It puts a smile on our face. We absolutely love seeing that. We don't get a big head from it. We will always like it. We will always retweet it. Keep it coming, because that lets us know that people are still excited to get our stuff.
Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, and I can attest to that. I know. always hear something back whenever I do that personally. So,
Oh yeah, it's gonna happen.
So what was when did you? I mean, so I know, like, I mean, t-shirts primarily, but I know you've done hats. Like what was the first hat you guys did, or do you
First
remember?
hat we did was the meshback GATA, and
Okay.
it quite frankly, it was, we were so in t-shirt mode, thinking about what's the next shirt, that we kind of forgot about hats and our ability to make hats. And so there was a huge hat up here in Nashville. I'm sure you've seen them that say like Smash or Nash on them. And it's just a regular old trucker hat, and it just says Smash or Nash in gold. And like you could not find them during that Predators run. Like, they were impossible to find. And the company that did them ended up working out a deal with Bridgestone Arena, and Bridgestone Arena was the only supplier of them. And they were selling them for like $50 a pop. Like, it was just absolutely absurd. And so we were like, okay, we know we're not catering to the Nashville crowd, but that hat was so simple and so clean, it worked. Why don't we do one similar? So we just did a GATA hat, and I think we made like 6 or 8 total, in like 2 different colors. So like 3 and 3. Like, it was a very, very small amount. We just didn't know what to expect. And that's not something like, that's stuff that we have to produce in a bigger amount, really, to make it worth our time. That's not
Right.
stuff that we can do on demand like a t-shirt. So we did a short run, and just like, let's just see how they do. And I think the first 2 days, or maybe the first day, we had sold out of the ones that we had, but we never put sold out or anything like that. We just quickly, got more in and decorated them.
Right.
And it was a consistent seller, like all the way through G-Day. We just kept pumping them and kept pumping them and kept pumping them. And I remember there was a big Twitter like meetup at G-Day that year, and like 30 something people had the hat on. Like, there's a group photo, and like every single person had the hat on. And so that was our first hat. And that showed us, all right, we can do shirts, we can do hats. People trust us. Then that's when we went to, I think we did the State Stripes hats after that. And then it was like, all right, let's do a rope hat. And then we got into polos, and then we did a jacket and a vest. And it was just like, slowly but surely, we're just, trickling things in and letting people see whatever you get from us is going to be good. Like, it's going to be quality.
Yeah.
You're going to like it. But we knew that we couldn't just come out and throw it all out there at once, because, quite frankly, if it doesn't have a swoosh on it or an Under Armour logo or Adidas or whatever, like, people are going to be sketchy or, a little leery to buy something for $30, $40, $50. So we made the polos Nike. We got Nike polos. They're very similar to the Coach's Sideline polos. That's what we did our polos on, because we wanted to have that trust with people. Okay, they're going to put out good stuff. We did Nike as our
Right.
first hats. We do Imperial rope hats. We try our best to do like name brand gear that we decorate to give people a little more comfort in just buying something unseen, because a lot of times it's somebody's first purchase. I mean, we have repeat customers, absolutely, but the way we're growing, it's a lot of new customers, and they're buying stuff just on recommendation or a picture on Twitter or whatever. And so for them to get that and be like, oh gosh, this is a really nice hat. Like, I see this hat at my local golf club or whatever. And so it just gives people more trust that whatever we do is going to be good. And that's kind of our philosophy, I guess, is to not have a full catalog right at the beginning, but keep people coming back, just keep dropping new stuff, and not really making an announcement about it. But boom, there it is. You liked all our other stuff. Look what we did now, and it's worked for us. And so that's what we're going to continue to do. We're going to continue to come up with new stuff, new styles, new types of apparel, and even maybe get into the sock game. I'm not sure. You heard it here first, but I'm not sure that we might be getting into some game day socks, some dress socks, some classier socks that you would wear with slacks, not like cotton socks you go to the gym in, but some nicer game day socks. So that's kind of our next venture, and we should have something on that pretty soon.
Some patch hats, maybe.
Patch hats, yep. If we can ever get any stinking hats in, I mean, every single supplier is at 0 hats available, no matter what style
Really?
it is. And if you find any, by the time you add them to your cart and hit submit, they're already gone. So like these trucker hats, these that have been an absolute staple of ours, cannot get them in any color whatsoever. They might put a couple hundred in a warehouse, and as soon as you go to add some to your cart, they're, like I said, they're already gone. So hopefully around August, September, that stuff kind of sorts itself out. But that's the timelines we're hearing from suppliers. But yeah, as soon as we can get some more hats in, and like a hat that we trust, then yeah, we're going to do some patch stuff. We're going to do some really cool stuff in the fall. We gotta have the product to be able to decorate it. And that's one thing that
Right.
I kind of want to get out to people, and I won't go too far into it, but we've done a good job of making ourselves very available on Twitter. We're very transparent. If there's a reason, if you don't have your order, there's a reason for it. It's not because we're just like dilly dallying around and sitting Indian style and just like, watching the sun come up and go down. We can't get stuff right now. Like the supply chain shortage is in the apparel game too. It's not just steel and wood and chicken and all that stuff. Like there's literally stuff that we cannot get. Like we're having to take shirts off the website every day just because we don't want to deal with somebody ordering it and having to wait a month or I don't know how long to get it.
Right.
So it's just tough right now. And so any patience, just bear with us. Like it's not us not doing our job. We literally don't have the product, and it would be impossible for us to line up our online catalog to our supplier's catalog because the numbers change by the second with what people have got in stock. So if you don't have your order and it's been 7 business days, shoot us an email, shoot me a tweet, whatever. It's not because you're getting ignored. It's because there's a holdup somewhere. And believe me, I'd love to get it off my docket. Believe me. But there is a reason you don't have it if you don't have it in that time period.
Cool.
You gotta swim over to China to get it.
Yeah. That's literally been discussed. Do we have to go over there and get shirts?
Yeah.
Well, I'm excited about the socks, and it's making me think through like our game, the game day attire? Because we feel like, we've got the uniform Twitter, but do we need game day? What am I wearing on game day Twitter? That's a new avenue where
I'm all
we've
about
already
it.
been discussing. Add sock combo to that discussion.
Socks
Potentially.
and pants. Pants.
Yeah.
Pants are the thing that
Yes.
I want to tackle before it's all said and done. I want a line of game day pants, whether it's the gray pants with the red, white, and black stripe down them. For Auburn, it would be like a white pant with a blue, orange, blue stripe, or
Right.
LSU it'd be yellow slacks with their stripe on it. I in my mind, that is going to be something we tackle sooner than later, is like a game day pant line, belts, stuff like that. And it's the stuff that's pertinent to us, that's fun to us. Like, we're not going to get into the logo game where we just look like everybody else. Like, I'm thinking, those Smathers and Branson type belts, but it's got our State Stripes logo on it, or maybe some of our quotes, quote shirts or something like that on the belt, game day polos, socks. Like, it's going to go more than just t-shirts and hats. I can assure you that.
That's really cool.
Nice.
Somewhere a uniform angel got its wings. You're talking about striped pants. I know Hunter's excited.
Yeah. So it's super cool to hear how, I don't know, how all of that came together. And it is shocking to me how fast it went from side hustle to your career.
Seriously.
That's a really cool part of it that I didn't realize it was that short. That's really cool. But so then like fast forward, right? So now you've got all this going. I know you have done some small shops for other people. So for example, I know like Bulldogs Battling Breast Cancer, I believe you guys print their shirts, right? Mm-hmm. So I know you had done things like that. So then, NIL comes along, and honestly, I mean, it's perfect fit. I would say, like, right, like for what you're doing, with the printing. So, but I mean, I know like we didn't necessarily know for sure what was coming with NIL.
Right.
How long had the idea for Eikonic Brands been floating? Whether you had that name or whatever, but just conceptually, had that been floating around in your head for a while, or was it kind of like a late blooming thing when it became like more readily apparent that it was actually going to happen?
Well, both. If you thought the turnaround from side hustle to full-time gig was quick, this was warp speed. Because obviously I had my eyeballs on NIL, and I'm like, okay, I'm trying to think of what's a way that we could get involved with athletes, help them out. It was never for me, how can I profit off of this kid? It was, what kind of platform can we offer for these kids? And so, knowing that we already have the technology and have the ability to host e-commerce stores for entities, whether it was, like you said, Bulldogs Battling Breast Cancer, the American Cancer Society, the local brewery, even UGA Rugby, the club team, we do all their stuff. And I mean, that store crushes. So it wasn't a new idea for us. It was something that we do every single day and that we have done for the last 4 or 5 years. But it was important for us to keep it separate from the 7-6, just because there is that gray area with the 7-6, and we just wanted it to be different. We came up with Eikonic literally in the closing hours leading up to July 1st, because that's the hardest part, is coming up with a name, finding out what's available, the trademarking, the LLC, all of that stuff. The Friday before July 1st, we really discussed, all right, we got to build out a new platform. We got to make a new site. We got to make a landing page for these people. If we say, we knew that we had something with Kendall. We had known that for a couple weeks. We knew that we had something with him. But then, as it got closer, it's like there's no landing page for these people. When it announces that Kendall Milton is doing stuff with blank business, we didn't have a name at the time. Where are they going to go? Like, what the first thing they're going to do is look that up, and they're not going to find anything, and nobody's going to want to join in. Nobody's going to want to jump on board. So
Right.
fortunately, we were already playing with switching our website over to a new platform, a new website, and it was pretty much already built out. We just had to change the name. So we spent that whole weekend, just like we did 5 years ago with 7-6, just trying to come up with names. And some of them were incredibly dumb. Some of them were good.
What was the
Some of
dumbest?
Yeah, can you share some that
The
the dumbest
outtakes.
didn't make the cut?
yeah, the dumbest is husky chickens. It's just like I can't be pitching this to like 5-star athletes and being like, hey, come to Husky Chickens. I mean, it wasn't going to work. And like in my mind, the whole time it was one word. It represents what we're doing. And the word iconic just kept coming to my head, or iconic just kept coming to my head over and over and over. And literally probably 2 nights before, my wife and I are looking up stuff. We're looking up different translations. We're on websites like typing in 7-6. We're typing in our names, our pets' names, and just trying to see if we can get a mashup of something. Because we didn't want to do something like college licensing concepts. You know what I mean? Like we wanted it to be,
Right.
we didn't want to be like, oh, go with CLC group. We wanted to be something a little sleeker than that. And so I looked up Eikonic, and the Greek word for it is how we spell it, Eikonic. And so that word means image, which name, image, likeness. It was light bulb moment. Yeah, it was like, I've got it. Yeah, I called everybody. It was like 2:30 in the morning. They're pissed. And I was like, no, I've got it. Like, we've got to have this name. And so it made the most sense, not only for that, but a bulk of our clients, especially starting off, are going to be from Athens. That's, inherently Greek. And then Nashville is considered, the Greece of the Western Hemisphere. I guess because we have a Parthenon, but I'm told that we're considered the Greece of the West. And it makes sense because there is a
checks
huge
out. Checks out.
Yeah, it checks out. I believe
The
you. We got a
math checks
Parthenon.
out.
Yeah. So I mean, there's tons of Greek restaurants here. There's a lot of Greek people here. There is a heavy Greek influence, and so it just made sense that it became iconic because it was important for us to have like not necessarily a story behind it, but we wanted it to make sense for us. Like I said, we didn't want to just be CLC Enterprises. We wanted to have something that made sense, just like 7-6, but at the same time, we needed to keep it separate. And so that's why there's that verbiage of iconic brands by the guys who brought you 7-6, or vice versa, however you want to say it. But it's us. It's the same people. It's the same concept as the 7-6. We're essentially just building out a bunch of mini 7-6s for these kids. And so they come up with a logo. We ask them what they like. We help them generate that logo. And then it's up to us to kind of find the content to keep people coming back, because the truth of the matter is there's only a few people that can move logo shirts over and over and over and over and over. So you've got to come up with content for them that plays into their brand. Like, Kendall Milton's Too Much Sauce playing off of the number 2, and, Zamir obviously has Zeus, and, you got to play into who they are as a player. Pod Lesney is Jackpot, which to me always reminds me of jackpot, especially when you're kicking field goals. You want it to be money. You want it to be good, jackpot, like jackpot. So that's the part where we are involved. We're helping you come up with content, and the only thing the players have to do is market it. All they have to do is post it on Instagram. All they have to do is be in their shirt when they're going to the dog walk. They got their blazer on, they got their t-shirt underneath, or they're back. Last year they had masks on, and some of them had a logo on it or whatever. But that's the biggest thing for the players, is they just have to market it after the game, the post game, Instagram lives or whatever. Have your t-shirt on, like make that thing be visible, because that's your brand, and that's the time for you guys to shine, is when you're on TV those 12, 13, 14 weeks of the season. That's your time to make sales, but you need to get it set up now so that you've already got yourself a comfortable grip of what this process is. And by the time football season rolls around, go time. Like, you need to have that stuff on. You need to be wearing it, because that is your only job, is to market it.
Right.
How many of these guys are you working on like catchphrase t-shirts for later on when they start dropping them in interviews?
Yeah, that's going to be the fun part, is something they say, like, a couple years ago after the Sugar Bowl, Pickens, he said, we're just going to chop wood forever. And like we did a chopping wood forever shirt, and they sold, at the time they sold okay. But like if NIL had been around back then, we could have said chop wood forever and given, a little hashtag George Pickens or a little dash George Pickens, like made it seem like it was a quote shirt for him because it had George Pickens on it and it came from George Pickens' website. They would have sold hundreds, thousands of them. So that's another fun thing for us is like we can use what we would normally come up with for our site, and we can potentially say, hey, Zamir, or hey, Kendall, this is a shirt that we would normally put on our site. Do y'all want to put it on your site? And it doesn't matter to us because it's just like wholesale to us. Like these shops are wholesale. We do make money off of these. It's at the end of the day, it's business for everybody. But it's no different than us being in a store downtown in Athens. We're going to charge them X dollars. They're going to sell them for X dollars. The money in between is their profit. I mean, that's all it is. The other cool part about us being able to do these one-offs and stuff like that is we're not having to charge these kids a ton of money up front. We allow them to sell. We kind of take on a risk, and we're willing to do that. We believe in the kids we're working with, the families we're working with, and we allow them to start selling their stuff. And then if they've paid money for a logo or trademarking or something like that, if we have helped them with that, then we just hold that out of their commission until it's, that part is covered, and then they'll start earning their money. So that it works well for everybody because, they're sitting here probably thinking, how am I going to pay this much money for a logo and this much money for trademarking? And I don't know if I'm going to sell enough shirts for that. They're going to learn a lot about business. You know what I'm saying? Like that's the fun part for me too, is that they're learning real life business, that money doesn't just come in, like it goes out too. And you got to figure out, I mean, we all know that. And you got to figure out, how do I hold on to more than I send out? And we feel like we give them a great opportunity to start selling stuff and start developing their brand before they're in the hole, this, monster amount of money. And we're very proud to be able to offer that. And like I said, we believe in the kids that we're working with. And I mean, so far their stuff's been covered quickly. There's not anybody where it's like, man, you're on the hook. Like, I don't know, you're going to have to really, really work to start paying this stuff off. There is none of that. Like we don't want it to be that way, So we provide the platform, we provide the content, they sell it, we print, pack, and ship it. And that's it. Like that, it's a really cool tool for them, and hopefully it shows them some skill sets that they may have not know they had. Maybe it inspires them to be entrepreneurs. Maybe it inspires them to get into branding or apparel or whatever. If, knock on wood, things don't work out at the next level for whoever we have as a client, maybe this opportunity right here gives them a future. Maybe it shows them that they really like doing business and they like calling the shots. And, it's just a great opportunity for them to learn real life business. And that honestly fires me up more than anything, is that they're getting hands-on training for the real world, as opposed to just, a diagram and a textbook and a case study. That this is real life stuff that you're dealing with. These are real decisions that affect how much money you bring in or keep. So that's the really cool part to me.
How does it? Something that I'm curious about, Chase, is how does it work with the compliance offices and things like that? Like, have you had to work with UGA, or like, kind of? Can you talk to us a little bit, like, what's it like on that side of things? And then, like, are there things that are off limits, I guess, or what are some of the guardrails?
Sure. Yeah. So the first thing I did was reach out to UGA compliance, and I had a very detailed list of questions. Can they do this? Can they do that? If they can't, is this okay? For example, selling autographs on their e-commerce stores. Because, the first thing people think is when they do their own brand is, oh, they're going to have their own t-shirts. Well, no, we're going to let them host autograph pictures, autograph mini helmets. We're going to make it a store for them. It's their brand. It's their store. And quite frankly, they're going to make a lot more profit on the autographs than the shirts, because we didn't have to produce anything. Therefore, there's less money, on our end involved or tied up. So I got with UGA compliance and I asked them, can they sign a photo of them in their school uniform? And they were like, yeah, they can sign a photo of them in uniform. They can even wear officially UGA licensed stuff in a photo or at a signing or whatever. They just have to have purchased it. So, I mean, it's the same concept. If they have a signed Georgia mini helmet on their site, we'll charge X amount to host that, to warehouse it and all that. And then they get whatever they sell it for on their site. So, I mean, they are buying it. And we got very clear instructions on what they could and could not do. And we follow those guidelines, and nothing in our scope of business anyway would put them in danger, because we're not going to use logos on our stuff. And the memorabilia part of it takes care of itself, because they will essentially be buying that from us and then selling it on their own site. So we did get with compliance. We were very detailed. They were, immediately responded. We have they sent us a little placard of do's and don'ts, what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And we even got like a document where we have to chronicle what athlete we worked with, what the payout was, and they have to do the same thing. So everything's lined up and syncs. And so UGA, just like anything else, they're very on top of it. They're very good at it. They were very cool about it. They were, from my understanding and talking with the players and some of the parents, they're very encouraging of kids to take on whatever opportunity comes your way. And I agree, but to an extent. The thing that I've told our guys, not that I'm, some marketing coach, but just from a fan's perspective, let alone a business side of it, is you see these kids that are posting that they went to, Zaxby's or Crystal or whatever on Instagram. And it's like, go follow this Instagram account or whatever. To me, that kind of dilutes your brand a little bit. Like, if I see a player on Instagram or I follow them on Twitter or whatever, you kind of want that like behind the scenes look. You know what I mean? Like at some point, my fear, and I'm not being critical of anyone. Let me be upfront about that. My fear is that these kids kind of maybe water down their brand, and it kind of starts to look like spam when you're just saying yes to everything and you're posting it and you're posting it and you're posting it over and over and over. Like the lure of me following X player isn't there anymore, because it's just advertisements that like I don't care about. So that would be my one cautious thing to the players is I want you to take every opportunity you can, but don't water yourself down. Don't look cheap by just taking on everything. Do a brand, do a website, and you're going to control your income. If you're waiting on the pizza parlor or Barbaritos or whatever to call you and do a radio ad, you're waiting on them to make money. But if you've got an e-commerce shop or you're a brand ambassador with 7-6, you can make money anytime you open your phone. And it's literally that simple. So that's my message to them is, hey, by all means, get your money, take care of your family, take care of yourself, but be smart about it. Like, don't just say yes to everything. And truthfully, in my opinion, and I'm not saying this because I've got my 7-6 and Eikonic glasses on, the best way for these kids to make money is to have their own brand, their own shop, or to be a brand ambassador, because you are making money every time you open the phone. Because without a doubt, aside from the branded stuff, your own branded stuff, if you become a brand ambassador with 7-6, you post that you're wearing the State Stripes shirt or hat or whatever, code Kendall this weekend only, Kendall's going to get a percentage of those sales. So it's going to reach a much bigger audience with the athletes than we would alone. And we know that. So we're willing to take care of them and give them money to post on their Instagram story or post an actual Instagram. And that doesn't, you don't have to be the star quarterback to be a brand ambassador. You could be, you could be anybody. And we're actually working with a kid right now that's a walk-on, and I won't say his name. I haven't got his permission, but he's the first Indian athlete in the SEC. He's the first Indian football player at Georgia.
Who that is.
Yeah, do you know who I'm talking about? Big K.
We know.
We talked about this.
He actually follows My God a Podcast on Instagram. So
he followed My God a Podcast.
Okay, so we're keeping it the family. There we go. I like it. Yeah, he's probably gonna be our first 7-6 athlete ambassador. And obviously we'll use whoever we do with Eikonic. That's the bonus of coming on with Eikonic, is that you're automatically going to be a 7-6 ambassador, and it doesn't cost you anything. Like, that's the best part of the whole thing, is you can do this and not ever be out any money up front. Certainly, if you want to take care of your trademarking, which we highly recommend you do it, regardless of the route you take, if you work with us, we can make it to where that doesn't come out of your pocket right away. But if you want to pay out of pocket, some kids have paid for their logos up front. That's great. That's awesome. But you don't have to if you don't have, a bunch of money laying under the mattress, which I don't think any of us do, but that's what we're here for. We want to make sure that you have the opportunity to make money, just like I tell this to people all the time, the old job ad that's like, must have 5 years experience. Well, how do you get 5 years experience if you don't get 5 minutes? And that always drove me nuts looking for a job when I was in my 20s. And so allowing kids to earn money without the experience, so to speak, is very rewarding to me, because they are so excited about it. They listen, they are engaged, they want to know your feedback. Do you like this kind of shirt? Do you think it'll sell? And it's just a really fun deal for everybody. They're getting to do something that they probably never thought they'd be able to do. And we're getting to, talk to the players and kind of get inside their minds and see how creative and how personable and how well-mannered they are. So it's just a really fun and cool experience for everybody.
Yeah, we've talked about like some of the guys that, like Rodrigo, respect the specs, that kind of stuff, like the branding that he would have been able to take advantage of here. And like, I think about guys like you mentioned, like the walk-ons and stuff. I mean, Tony Waller likes to talk about the Prather Hudson. Like, Prather Hudson could have had, like, something going on with his.
He could have had
his brand.
I knocked you down, but I'll pick you up at 7. He could have had his own branded shirt and sold it like crazy. Hey, Prather, if you're listening, give me a call. We can still make that happen.
That's true. He's still in college. Just in Illinois. So I was just thinking the same thing. Like, Chase, if this had been around, like, who's a guy that you think like really could have capitalized off this in like days past?
No, Sean Marino. That's the one I go to. No, Sean. Any of the tailbacks for the tailbacks, like, we're RBU. We always want the tailback. I just know that, like, when I was doing those black shirts back in 07, 08, and they were selling like crazy. I think my statute of limitations is up on this, but we had one that said, I'm sure other people did too, but the one we sold like crazy was "Do you know Sean?" And
do you know Sean?
Full disclosure, I sold "Do you know Sean" shirts on Spreadshirt.
Really? Did you did them too? That's so funny. Yeah, so that's hilarious. Yeah, I think No Sean would have been a good one. Obviously, Todd Gurley would have been huge. Sony and Nick, man, they would have been huge. But yeah, any of those tailbacks, I think, would have been huge. Obviously, Rodrigo probably would have been the biggest. I think we all agree that. Like, he got the biggest cheer when they would announce his name at Sanford Stadium.
For sure. Mm-hmm. Yep, he did.
I think he probably in the last 10, 15 years, at least for Georgia, I think Rodrigo would have been absolutely number one.
Well, then you got guys that have their own kind of side entity outside of football. Like, I look at guys like Malcolm Mitchell, with the Malcolm Reeds, that kind of stuff. Like, he could have done. He had something already packaged up. You know what I mean?
Right. Yeah. He could have done listen, here's the thing. We are pitching this as your own brand, but really it's your own e-commerce store. So, like, even if Malcolm Mitchell didn't want to sell MM26 or whatever his logo is, whatever he would call his brand, even if he didn't want to sell his own branded stuff, he would have had a platform to sell all of his stuff, and we would have just warehoused it. We wouldn't have said, okay, you're selling your book for $34. All right, we're going to charge you $19.
The magician's hat.
Yeah, the magician's hat. We would have just charged, a small fee, kind of like a consignment store, just to warehouse it and pick it and ship it. So he would have made a killing selling his own stuff through one of our platforms, because, again, like I said, it's not just apparel. This is your own e-commerce store. And so I'm really excited for these guys to start autographing some photos and helmets and that sort of thing, and
some
start.
SEC championship pictures, some national
Yes,
championship pictures.
that's where they're going to make the most money, because there's just not any money for us to sink into it to produce the item. But
Yeah.
trickling back to do's and don'ts, one of my things that I was most excited about is I thought they might be able to sell like game used gear, like gloves or a towel or autograph a cleat or something like that. Huge no. That was X'd right out of the gate. But if they buy their own cleat, it could be the exact same cleat that they wear in the game. It could be an all white Adidas cleat. If they buy their own gear, they can sign that and sell it however they want. So that's another thing that's going to be fun is if you buy a pair of cleats that you wear for summer workouts, or you buy a pair of red and black Nike gloves or whatever, if you buy it, you can sell it. So that's another thing that's going to be cool, is just seeing how many items these kids get to throw in their shop, because I know they're sitting there stressing, thinking, what's my next T-shirt going to be? Like, I think everybody's already bought my logo tee. What's my next shirt going to be? We're going to come up with the content, but you need to start thinking about, stuff outside the box. Like I said, with the gloves, the cleats, the autographs, and that sort of thing. There's literally not anything that we can't host on these sites. So that's my other message to them, is it's not just apparel. This is your own e-commerce website. Like, go crazy. Like, think, like, let your mind wander. Like it is your site.
One of the things that I go back to is kind of like talking about like the trademark quotes or whatever that they would say during interviews and stuff. But even like, I go back to the Cincinnati game when Pickens scored that touchdown and he's like doing the celebration with his boys, like even like something as simple as like the little celebration that he was doing. The gritty. Yeah, exactly. Like,
so one of Jack Pod's shirts is going to be a celebration photo from that game. So I don't know if you're familiar with our Get the Picture series, where we have a picture of the play on the back of the shirt, and it's got, excerpts of Munson's call. So it's the same concept, and it's going to have his logo on the left chest. Spoiler alert, coming out tomorrow. At the time of this podcast, coming out tomorrow. And then on the back, it's going to have
we didn't
a
rehearse
picture.
That either.
No, we didn't. It's going to have a picture of him, running down the field, holding up number 1. The picture we all saw immediately. So that's going to be cool for him. Is not only getting to have your initials or your logo on a shirt, but like having those moments, those memories on a piece of apparel forever. It's just cool. Like I said, these guys, they are really, really enjoying it. They are having so much fun with it. They can't wait. They're constantly texting, "Hey, am I good? Can I post this? Can I post that?" And I'm like, dude, it's your world, man. You post it, you get it out there. Like your income depends on how well you market this. Like, you're basically an influencer for yourself. So don't ask me if you can post. Like, it is your brand. All I do is print, pack, and ship, or all we do is print, pack, and ship. It's your call, man. Like, you market it however you want, and I'll be here to check the orders.
Well, with Pod Leslie, hopefully we can get the debate cleared and no more hot pod. It's Jack Pod.
It is like, Jack, come on, people. Pod. It's Jack Pod. His Instagram says so. It's Jack Pod.
Exactly.
So we got you got Jack Pod. We've got Kendall Milton. Who else is iconic?
We got Zamir. Right, Zamir White launched his site today, and his stuff. He's going to have some fun stuff here in the future. We're going to do.
I like his logo. It's got Z and then the number 3, and there's a lightning bolt in the middle for Zeus. Yeah. That's pretty cool. That's cool.
So we're definitely going to play into the whole Zeus thing, the God of Thunder, that whole thing. But we've also got Latavius Brini, and he has been absolutely fantastic to work with. He is a funny kid. He's very polite. He's well-mannered. He's super engaged in it. He wants to learn about it. He wants to know about it. His stuff is going to be very, very cool. So his stuff will come out. He wants to wait until he actually has some gear in hand to launch his. So his will launch maybe towards the later end of this week, or maybe even early next week. But yeah, Brini is another one to watch out for his launch. And his logo is sick too. We did a really good job with his logo. But then there's several athletes we're working with just as brand ambassadors and trying to, get that thing rolling. but right now it's those four. Those are my guys right now. That's the four guys I talk to the most. And so yeah, we'll have one more launching tomorrow, and then another one probably later at the end of this week, and then they will all four have their sites out there. And like every couple of weeks, we're going to drop new merch. Just the exact same philosophy I talked about earlier with 7-6 is we're not going to throw everything out there at once. Drop this,
Right.
drop that, let people get it. Let people say, oh, this is legit. This isn't just some, gimmick. And the people that follow 7-6 and know that we're behind it, obviously they trust it. But there's a whole slew of people out there on, these kids, fans and their platforms that have no idea who we are. And we recognize that. So it's, like I said, it's building mini 7-6s. We'll give them their logo shirt and maybe a content shirt. And then here in a couple of weeks, like Kendall just dropped 2 more shirts today, and then a couple more weeks shirts. By the time it's football season, their store is full. So when they score 3 touchdowns against Clemson, or Pod bangs one at the end of the game to beat Clemson, they go to Pod Lesney's website and he's got like 6 or 8 shirts. And it's just like sensory overload, and they buy all 8. You know what I mean? Like there's strategy right to the whole thing, and it worked for us. It's a model we believe in, and so that's what we're going to implement with them.
Maybe it'll work out and it'll be like oh my god moment.
Yes, an iconic call. Yeah, that would be fantastic. And let me reiterate, like all of this stuff, I am the most excited for them. Like obviously it's cool for us and our business, but like as a fan, it is so rewarding to me, like taking the business side out of it, it's so rewarding to me to be able to offer University of Georgia football players, kids that are half my age by now, but you just have that look up to them like they're this mythical character because of how we grew up entrenched in this stuff. So the rewarding part to me is helping out these guys and seeing them get excited about something other than just football. So I want to make sure people know that like our end game isn't to like make money off of players, because then that just gets you back into the whole NCAA thing where we started with this. That is not our joy. Our joy is being able to help out Georgia. And we know that if we do right by Georgia, we're going to do right by the players. We're going to do right by their families. And ultimately, I'm going to be doing right by me and my family and my partners' families. So if you want to do this and you want to do it the right way, you'll do it with us, because we're going to make sure that you stay protected. Your brand stays protected, because first and foremost, we're Georgia fans. And Georgia was here long before the three of us. It was here long before Kendall and Zeus and all those guys. It'll be here long after. And I'm still going to be a fan whether those guys are playing or not. So my thing is I need to do it right by Georgia. And if I can be a little bit of a recruiting tool for Georgia, these kids come on recruiting trips and Kendall's hosting them. And it's like, oh yeah, all this stuff. Like my guys over at Eikonic or 7-6 do this. They'll do the same thing for you. They're awesome. If we can be a little bit of an influence that way, then that is what's rewarding to us. It is not about, profiting off these kids. It is about giving these kids a platform, and we are literally compensating ourselves for the time. But this is not a cash grab for us. This is not a scheme. Like when you tell other businesses about this platform, they always are waiting on the shoe to drop. They're like, but what's the catch? And it's like, there is no catch. Like instead of buying all these shirts up front, you're just going to send people to this website and we're going to send them out and you're going to get a check at the end of the month. Like it's just as simple as it sounds. There's no hidden fees. Yeah. There's not oh, by the way, we printed 500 shirts. You only sold 100. You owe us for 400 shirts. That's not it either. It's all on demand. It's all one-offs. And the fun for us is being able to help Georgia.
Yeah. I mean, it is cool. I mean, for me, it's been long overdue, right? I mean, the fact that and like with Georgia, right? Like we've been the brunt of this. I feel like we kind of invented the fact that these things were violations in the past with the SEC championship in 2002. Although that stuff is like actually still wouldn't be allowed, right? After when you went through the do's and don'ts, you can't sell game worn stuff. So that's actually interesting. But I mean, it's. Oh, it has always seemed silly. We're paying these coaches the astronomical money, and the guys who are scoring the touchdowns, making the tackles, that I'm not saying that they are not compensated with scholarships and training, all that stuff, but I don't know, the fact that we had kids couldn't have their own YouTube channel, right? Like we've seen that
Right.
kind of stuff happen, right? It's been silly. So I think it's been a long time coming. I'm happy for the kids, and happy that you're able to play a part in this and help them out. It's pretty cool.
Yep.
Yeah, I know that I'm going to speak for Jim here, but if there's a certain wide receiver by the name of Pierce Jackson listening, we have a desire to have an official wide receiver for the podcast.
Yeah, and if you want your own brand,
never doubt Kieris.
Yeah, if you want your own brand, King, I can do a lot of stuff with a crown and a 10 and K and J. Like, come on, don't wait, come on, don't wait to get paid. Control your income. I mean, it goes the same. For us, starting this whole thing, it was, one day you wake up and you're just like, am I really going to just work every day for somebody else? Like, I kind of want to just do it. I kind of want to do it for myself. And it is a risk. It's scary. You make a lot of sacrifices. Don't get me wrong. But the same message, the same principle applies to these kids. If you want to just wait around and make an Instagram post and get $40, $50, $60 for that, do your thing. But if you want to control how much money that you make and control your income and get yourself kind of set up, then you need to be doing your own thing, your own brand, because that's when you're going to control your income.
Yeah, for sure. Awesome.
I wish I controlled my income like they can, but I don't.
Right. Well, and there may also be a certain podcast, may potentially this podcast, that may be moving their merchandise over to be powered by Eikonic and 7.6 in the near future as well. So
that's the rumor, huh?
That's what I heard.
Just a rumor. No free shout outs. That was posted on the dog vent. We'll see if it's true.
We know a guy.
Yeah.
Well, man, this has been awesome. I know,
hinting at what's to come. Yeah, when you guys get your fan site set up with us, we'll do the same thing. We'll come up with some creative stuff. We'll obviously help cross promote and wear the hats and post the hats and stuff like that. So it's for anybody. It really is. If you've got a business and you think you can make a little extra money, even if it's just to maybe buy you guys new headphones or a new mic or whatever, like there's a way to make money. And it's not like you're going and hiring some firm to build you out a website and do all this stuff and you're in the hole all this money. Like it just doesn't work that way. Like you're going to sell your money and whatever costs there are associated with it, we'll figure it out. We'll work something out. We'll hold it out of your first check or whatever. It's just, it's a no brainer for anybody looking to make money off of merchandise. Think you can do it. Absolutely. Reach out to us and we'll be happy to help.
Do we get like 7.6 apparel brand ambassador shirts?
Yeah, y'all can be brand ambassadors.
And Fripp Dog can be like proud parent of a 7.6 apparel ambassador.
My dad. I was just on vacation with my dad, and he was like, "Jim, I need to like build out my 7.6 wardrobe more. You've got a lot more 7.6 T-shirts this trip than I have. So when I get home, I need you to help me pick out them because I need to expand my.
I need to send Fripp Dog a couple shirts just as a thank you. He always likes our stuff. He always retweets it. He participates in the contest. I mean, all y'all do, but Fripp Dog is always in the forefront of everything. I need to send him a little thank you care package.
Awesome. Well, and I'll I guess one more plug. I'll say I put in an order with 7.6 with Chase for some custom shirts for a tournament that I do annually down on Fripp, and they turned out awesome. And I need to connect with you because there's some folks that didn't order one ahead of time. I don't know what their deal was.
They missed
but
out.
when they saw them, they were like, "I gotta have one." So I'm gonna need a few more of those. So always do custom as well. But man, this has been awesome. And like, honestly, I kind of had this idea. I mean, like the NIL and Eikonic and you guys coming together and doing this really sealed and I think extended this story. But like full disclosure, when Chase, when we had you on last year, I guess it's for everyone else. You obviously know this, but we had you last year, and we were talking about the Tennessee game. Like, I think your part in the podcast was probably 15 to 20 minutes. I think everyone was about that, but we talked for like an hour and a half.
Yeah, we did.
like we hit stop recording, and then so some of this we had talked through a little bit before. Some of the kind of the birth of 7-6 at least, but then moving into Eikonic and everything was just it has been really cool, and to see you guys get out there ahead of this, right? I mean, you were out there on day one, so it's been really cool to see.
Yeah, thank you very much for obviously the kind words, but thank you for having me on and letting us share our story, and people kind of get to hear a voice that is behind some of the shirts that they've bought, or some of the shirts they've hated, for all I know. But we're just, at the end of the day, we're fans first, and we're busting our tail to get you guys shirts that you can't buy anywhere else, and it's been really, really fun. Obviously, shout out to the dogs for being good these last 4 years, because without them being good, it's probably a little bit of a moot point. But it's been fun. We're excited about the future. And again, thank you guys so much for allowing us to come on, for promoting us, and not only being generous with your time, but also your money, and supporting us, even when it's not buying Athens collection things, buying the Fripp Island shirts, and just helping out in general. So we definitely appreciate it. And we could not do this without the support of you guys and other folks like yourself.
Awesome. Absolutely. I don't know, before we wrap, John, any final thoughts or any other questions you had?
Did we talk about where the 7-6 actually came from? Like the name. Like where'd you guys come up with the 7-6? We talked about Eikonic.
Yeah, so 7-6. Again, the hardest part is the name, and the first thing that we came up with was South Douglas, which was the street address of one of our partners, and that's where we spend all of our time. Before we'd go out, dinner parties, whatever, we were always over at our buddy's house, and he lived off South Douglas, and we were just like, South Douglas kind of has a catch to it. But it was getting nitty gritty time, and we just needed an LLC. So we went with that with our LLC, and we thought we would make that our retail, and then we didn't. And so we're texting one night. It was late. And I think we're all just delirious and just like tired of thinking. And we just start naming movie quotes, like just one after another, like from Forrest Gump to Armageddon, anything in between. We're just firing off movie quotes, not even making sense about anything. And then one of us says, Rule 76, no excuses, play like a champion. And I'm like, Rule 76. And so we're all like, oh my gosh, are we going to be Rule 76? So then we made a logo with like Rule 76, and we showed it to some people, and people were like, I mean, I kind of like the 7-6 part, but the Rule 7-6 just looks like it came from like Goodies or something. You remember the old like department store Goodies? They're like, it kind of looks like stuff you'd buy at Goodies. And I'm like, okay, first of all of my 8th grade clothes came from Goodies, so chill out.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Goodies was a staple, man.
I know. Other than being from Knoxville, it was a great place. But so we dropped Rule, and we just went the 7-6. And so long story long on that, Dustin, our designer, he formed the 7-6 into, a 7 and a 6, just like what it looks like. But it's also kind of plays like a music note. And then it's got that tri-star in the middle, which is the whole thing is patterned after the state of Tennessee flag. Like you got the little one light, the one white line in between the 7 and 6. You got the tri-star, the red and blue. And there's a couple people on Twitter that can absolutely just not get over the fact that we have a tri-star in our logo. And I'm like, dude, you don't realize that the Athens collection, the 7-6 that is literally like 1/4 of the operation. Truthfully, it is. Right. Like the 7-6 apparel is literally like 25% of our business. It's all wholesale stuff, corporate stuff, these web stores and that sort of thing. And I'm always just like, wow, what a crazy concept. A company from Nashville has, I don't know, a Nashville themed logo. That's just wild. So that's how the 7-6 started. And so we were seriously considering playing off of that 7-6 with Eikonic, and trying to think of we were going to go with Red 7. because remember in the movie he's like Red 7 hot route, Red 7, and Owen Wilson's like I don't know what hot route is. I don't know what Red 7 means. So we were like, should we do it? And we're all cracking up. We're like, I kind of like the way it plays, Red 7. And then I was like, no, there's too many sevens in there. Like people are gonna be like, what's these guys' deals with 7, 6, and Red 7? Like what? Yeah, and so I kind of nixed that one, but then it was back to square one. We are just, literally for like 36 straight hours, my brain was mush just trying to come up with names. Like I had my mom and dad involved, my sister involved, and they're
What's
saying things
name?
like, they're like prestige choice, and all I could think of was prestige worldwide, wide, and like. It ultimately in crunch time it came together like it was supposed to with Iconic, and then finding the Greek usage of it. It just made sense for where we are, what we're doing, and so it worked out. But yeah, the naming is the absolute hardest part because you can come up with the best name, and then it's not trademarkable. You can't do anything with it. So the name was the hardest part. But yeah, the 7-6 is literally from the quote. Rule 76, no excuses, play like a champion, which is why we say no excuses, dress like a champion on some of our stuff. It is quite literally from Wedding Crashers.
Nice. I was about to say we need to drop the movie for those that might not be aware. Wedding Crashers.
It came from Wedding Crashers. Yep.
That's awesome. All right, so for folks that want to go out there, I know it's iconicbrands.com, and that's EIKONIC brands.com. I've got Kendall Milton, Zamir White already out, right? I got to say that Kendall Milton training hoodie is pretty sweet. Might have to grab that myself. Awesome. Got Latavius Brittany coming out as well, and Jackpod. Again, Jackpod, not Hot Pod. Coming out soon. And then, hey, My Got a Podcast store coming soon as well.
That's exactly right. Your logo will be up there on the Iconic Brands website with all those other legends, so you'll be in good company.
Amazing. Well, Chase, this has been. I knew it would be fun. I had a blast talking to you last time. So you delivered for me personally again. It's always fun to talk to you. I'm sure we'll talk again. And John, I had this like cringe last year after I talked to you and Jeff Dancer and George Foster. I had multiple moments where I was like, oh my gosh, like why are we not all on? So first year jitters, I guess, messed up on some of that stuff. So John, you guys got to meet, I guess, virtually right tonight too. So it's been a lot of fun.
Yeah, we did.
It's nice to see the face with the name.
Right.
Yeah, same here.
Live and coming live from the dog den as well.
I can always count on John to keep me up to date with the best GIFs on Twitter. I can't tell you how many of those I've tried to like bookmark or save or make sure I find it to use it. The My God a Podcast GIFs are phenomenal, by the way. Like I need those in my text messages. So keep that up for sure. Those are awesome. And thank you again for having me on.
There's more of those coming. There's more coming.
We have some in the can, like you have designs.
Perfect.
Awesome.
I think we can make a shirt out of some gifts.
Yeah.
Awesome. All right, guys. Well, this has been a blast. And everyone go out and check out 7-6 Apparel and go check out Iconic as well, obviously, and support all these players that you're cheering for on Saturday. So,
please do.
Chase, thanks again for coming on.
Thanks, guys. We'll talk soon.
All right. Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.
Go Dogs.